A lot of folks go into this expectation of, hey, I'm worth this much money, I'm going to get this multiple, and I'm going to get all that cash up front. And, some of the brokers do a really good job saying, no, you need to get this much cash, this much performance, this much rolled equity, but your rolled equity should be worth this in 5 years. But the reality is the multiple of the base number changes, which it often does. That's where people are set up for frustration.
Hey there, dental economist. If you're a dentist owner or a leader within a dental business thinking about growing production, case acceptance, patient and staff satisfaction, positive outcomes, and everything else that comes with running a dental business, then you're a dental economist, and you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Dental Economist Show. We're meeting at the intersection of profit and purpose as I sit down with dental leaders who share their stories about dentistry, business, and growth. Welcome back to the Dental Economist Show with me, Mike Huffaker. Before we get started, a quick reminder, if you could do me a favor, if you enjoy the show, please like, subscribe, leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. It means a lot. The algorithm loves it, and it helps show the content to more people so that we can continue to deliver valuable insights to the dental community. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Mike White, a seasoned expert in healthcare financing with over 2 decades of experience. As a principal at Clifton Larson Allen, Mike brings an extensive wealth of knowledge to the table, specializing in dental, med spa, and aesthetics groups. His expertise lies in identifying complex financial, operational, and technical challenges and developing comprehensive solutions that enhance business operations. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm good. The longest description ever. I'll shorten that for the next time.
No, I think it's all very, very fitting. I've had a chance to listen to you speak at a couple conferences. We had you join us at our Stellar Partners Day Zero Consultants event last year, and really always have appreciated kind of your perspective on things. And I think it's an area, at least I should take a step back. I always kind of laugh at the assumptions that we make within the specialty where we reside, of assuming that people are aware of the same things that we're aware of. And I face it all the time on the technology front with groups where I'm like, oh, of course, how this works, what the benefits are, what it looks like, how building a platform and centralization, standardization.
How important it is, what this is supposed to do for you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have to kind of shake and go like, no, many of these folks came from different backgrounds, and like they're worried about kind of a different sort of day to day. And maybe that's what you find as well.
It is. Well, we find those inflection points, right? Because, you guys serve a similar client base as we do, and we kind of break them up 1 to 3 locations or 1 to 5 million of revenue, 5 to 15 and up. And even from there, we could bifurcate it further, but every one of them have a different thing that they're learning at the moment and frankly, different priority. And you guys and we come in at various stages of that journey and all of your solutions that you have, which has been fun. I've actually gotten to attend 2 of y'all's get-togethers and gatherings with all the team members and stuff. It's so powerful. And of course, seeing what you're doing, but we love to bring your data, the analytics side, to what we do as well on the financial side, which helps tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Which is what we've seen as the challenge here.
Well, let's take a step back. How did you get in dental and healthcare in the first place?
Yeah, well, my story is, I started young, right? I was 23 years old when I started my CPA firm. And really at that point, why not? It was a side job to help pay student loans, doing bookkeeping. And what I just found was more and more business owners were not getting anything from their CPA. They focused on tax return, financial statement audit. And the rest of the year, when there's a business to run, it was an afterthought. So that became my aha moment, my niche. I married a CPA as well, high school sweetheart, all the fun stuff. You've seen me, I built like an offensive lineman. My wife is like 5'1", not built like an offensive lineman. So it's kind of a fun contrast. But, I started the firm and I just gradually, and that was 2004, started working, really launching and growing 2007 to 2008, which is a tough time. And then 2010, I acquired a 62-year-old healthcare consulting firm that was 85% dental. And what I realized, especially being here in Dallas, Texas, is, there's some big players here in the marketplace. And what were they not doing? And they weren't focused on great quality financials. They weren't focused on the analytics. They were more focused on wealth management. And then, of course, there was that whole run-up of DSOs and multi-site. So that became our niche. Fast forward to 2018, we hadn't gotten, fairly good size. We were a top 400 firm out of 45,000 firms. We're proud of that. And But we realized that a lot of our bigger groups were needing quality of earnings and due diligence and M&A support audits, and we just didn't do that stuff. So that became our goal to merge with CLA, which has been an incredible merger and gives me 9,000 people all over the US to leverage for skill sets. It's been fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as a way to think of it then is that people will go to, their financial advisor or go to their CPA or accountant for maybe like a really kind of narrow scope of what is actually available to receive a benefit from, and that you try to position, or that you do position, as more of like a business partner to help think through things that otherwise people aren't really even realizing should be considered.
And it really is a good way to look at it. I think, bookkeeping, when we think of all the things practice owners, business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs have to deal with day to day, bookkeeping can be an afterthought. It absolutely could be something where I'm just, my front desk can do it. My bookkeeper's fine. It gets me the tax returns and all the stuff at year end that I have to do. And what my message has been, you mentioned speaking. I mean, I speak at about 30 to 40 conferences and podcasts like this a year. I love education, but the message is the same. Financial fundamentals are crucial. Bringing all your data from all the analytics and software and tools that you have to understand how to drive your performance is critical. And you're leaving millions of dollars on the table for simple bookkeeping. And when we realize a lot of times it's, hey, we need a tax return. It's like, great. What's your challenge? Well, my CPA doesn't tell me I owe any money until the end. Well, great. When do you talk to your CPA? Well, once a year. It's
Right. Yes.
there's only so much the CPA can do in that situation to help guide you through the process. So our goal is to work with partners like yourself to say, great, how do we all elevate the industry and provide this data that the industry needs? It's been fun.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that what you were doing before, there might not have been kind of a diligence arm in the function that was offered to DSOs. And obviously that becomes important. I think if we look at the DSO landscape over the past 3 or 4 years, it's littered with failed transactions. Like, we're all aware of this. Like, people don't really like to talk about it, but the reality of the situation is that there are a whole slew of platforms that went to market that sought additional investment or looked to partner with private equity, and those transactions failed. When you speak with groups today, or when you're kind of looking just maybe even high level, if you want to pull it back a little bit further, what are the things to kind of get your financial health in order, or your fiscal kind of responsibility, in order to position yourself better to have positive outcomes in the future?
It's such a vital question when you look at not only failed, but sometimes didn't even transact, right? If we look at 2024 alone, depending on who you talk to on the larger scale, there are one-off practices being bought, bolt-ons and stuff like that. But there were somewhere in the 25 to 30 practices that went to market last year, and there's less than 5 that actually transacted. And for various reasons, obviously the market's been an interesting time. Valuations are still elevated. Interest rates, costs haven't really come back. All of us expected Q1 softening of interest rates, which isn't happening. But when we look at the expectations that are being set on that initial valuation, right? And you've had some great speakers on the call, but there's a lot of brokers in the industry that will do a back of the napkin math of your EBITDA. And they don't have us do, or any other CPA firm do, a quality of earnings, a sell side, and say, here's what your EBITDA is, and here's how it waterfalls down. And a lot of folks go into this expectation of, hey, I'm worth this much money. I'm going to get this multiple, and I'm going to get all that cash up front. And, some of the brokers do a really good job saying, no, you need to get this much cash, this much performance, this much rolled equity, but your rolled equity should be worth this in 5 years. But the reality is the multiple of the base number changes, which it often does. That's where people are set up for, frustration. And if those deals do come through, because it's like, okay, well, I've worked 9 months to get this deal done, and you're already going into the partnership frustrated. What do you think you're going to be in 3 years when you've agreed to take a pay cut to do the same job you've been doing? And, one of the things we talk about a lot is you're selling the earnings that you're willing to leave behind. So if you make $1 million a year and you sell, you're willing to take 500,000 a year to do the same job, then you're selling 500,000. And people have to reconcile that they are taking a pay cut in order to create that value creation that they're getting.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is a part of this then, or maybe a large part, is a disconnect of expectations from reality? And what you're able to do is come in and help reset what those expectations are, which prevents the disappointment, which disappointment is just things not working out in the way that they were expected to work out, so that there can be maybe a different perspective as you enter a process to understand, what the various outcomes may be.
And our goal to be a part of that team, and you kind of mentioned that earlier, if you will, that, our goal, we do about 250 transactions just in dental alone, buy side, sell side, quality of earnings, consulting support, things like that. So that's a, great number. It's pretty much split 50-50, buy side, sell side. And we have a phenomenal team that's all they do is those projects in dental. But when you look at that, effect, so let's just take a 3 location or a 7 that's never really had systems. They're not right. They're not on your platform yet, or they're not fully utilizing your platform if they are. And now it's all of a sudden they're grown up. They have reporting requirements, the bank, the private equity group, everybody's expecting more and more data from them. And all of a sudden the things they thought they were busy with is a whole new job that they weren't ready for. I think that's where I see a lot of folks, and some folks you've had on this podcast before. It's like, helping them from a culture aspect beyond the money. This, you're going to get the money you want. Life is good. Valuations are crazy from where your predecessors were, but are you ready for the business owner transition, if you will? And you've been through events yourself. I mean, I've sold 6 companies myself personally. And then every time it's a little different of who's your partners now and what does that look like?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Getting people in the right headspace to say, hey, who's your team before and during this transition that's going to run alongside you in the good days and bad?
Now, let's say you are an emerging group or a small group, maybe 3 to 5 offices, very, very much doctor led at this point in time, with a perspective that, look, we're going to do things differently. Maybe we don't want to partner with a DSO. Maybe we want to just build this ourselves over time and create just kind of a thriving business to grow. Whether it's the intent to partner with a DSO at some point, or to seek private equity investment, or just to grow and finance your growth over time, do you need to be thinking about the same things, or are there things to think about differently depending on the scenario or your desired goals?
I think there's different problems you have with different sizes, if you will. I think, from a financial standpoint, I think you need to be thinking the same. Is it as pressing to some folks that aren't having to report out? Maybe not, but the data and decisions as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, are still the same. You have to make them now. You need access to this information in order to drive the business forward, be successful, go raise the debt instead of private equity, bring on that next partner and recruit them to your goals. So the challenges become the same. I think the pressures are a little different for each of those. I mean, a 3 location person, you think about those inflection points, 3 locations, that provider is probably chair side a little less. Their goal, the next step is to get chair side, to bring on the first regional manager. 7 locations, again, same deal. Right now, their bookkeeping has to get more sophisticated. The bankers expect more from them. They're growing up a little bit. They're probably talking to you a bit more about more tools and more modules within your platform. 15 locations, they're going to us and saying, we need GAAP financials, accrual basis. Somebody's been talking about this AR thing. I don't know what that is. What do we do with that?
Right.
We're going to go from QuickBooks to a Sage Intacct and something along those lines. We probably have our first C-suite hire, somewhere around there. So each one of those create a different challenge. But to your ultimate point, I don't even know if you're asking the question. When you think about this shift in the marketplace, I'm getting more and more folks, and I bet you are too, that are saying, why sell the private equity? If I can just create a cash flow machine and I can build the right team that just prints cash, why sell? And we are seeing more of those. And those are fun journeys to be a part of too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. And we have seen more of those, and we've been kind of the platform or foundation for some of them to make it happen. It's always impressive to me when I watch somebody navigate through that. Let's talk a little bit about negative consequences of not having your house in order.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you have any stories that you can share of examples where things just really went wrong because there wasn't the financial foundation needed in order to achieve success?
And beyond the obvious deals that just failed, right? The deals that didn't happen because of that. I think a lot of things, when you're not having your house in order, between getting a failed deal, not being able to get the debt, which is where we get brought in with banks quite a bit of saying, Mike, we got to get these financial statements cleaned up. But partnerships have fallen apart. Decisions have been, failed. Debt covenants, once you even secured the debt, have created a whole new plethora of problems. leadership team, if they don't believe that you know what you're doing and your C-suite is not following you anymore, I mean, you have a phenomenal team. We have a big team. If they don't believe what you're doing and making the right decisions long term for their stability and their livelihood, we see that, there's a lot of people leaving their jobs for great DSOs that have their house in order. So I think some of those, it sounds so simple, and somebody's gonna be like, oh, this is just a bookkeeper and accountant talking about this, but it really is the fundamentals of accounting leads some of the regional manager operations discussions, that then leads into some of the rev cycle discussions. I mean, it all is intertwined. And if somebody's not willing to, keep all of it together and make the decisions, then that's a big problem. But if I take it to just the financial side, I mean, we have some phenomenal case studies. Like we had one case where this was a bigger group. They were going to market. We were brought in to do some cleanup. They just couldn't figure out what their EBITDA was. And so they did a light valuation before we got in, and it was like $100 million valuation. When we were done, it was 135. So just bookkeeping, we increased the value of that business by $30 million and their ability to transact. And, take that down to a smaller scale. We've done that at, $100,000 changes, 10,000, $1 million changes. Those are big impacts at a multiple of something, a multiple of EBITDA. It's real dollars.
Yeah. So what are the mechanics of that? Is that just uncovering and discovering where calculations have been done incorrectly, or unearthing potential elements that contribute to EBITDA that had not been considered previously?
Yeah, all the above, right? A lot of times, especially multi-site, people look at it as one big pot. So whatever, practice has money, right? They've collected more at this other practice. That's who's paying payroll this month. That's who's paying rent this month. We bought this big piece of equipment. Our tax CPA or a tax advisor said, go write it off. We just expensed it as opposed to putting it to the balance sheet, which would give us an add back. Things like that create the problem. Really, when you start dialing in, then you start saying, okay, well, your supplies are 7-8%. At this size, you should be sub 5. Well, let's go negotiate. We won't name people. Let's go negotiate some suppliers here. There's some great groups that they do that on your behalf, and let's go do this. Let's go look at your payment processing fees. So cash pay is a big deal now, and you can push some of those fees back to your customers. Let's go rejig that. Your collection cycle, your production, your doctors are doing a phenomenal job, but you're collecting at 95%. If you're on a cash basis, structure, then that's, money that you're leaving on the table. So our cleanup usually uncovers multiple things of the intercompany and multi-site allocation, but also gives them decisions at the 11th hour to go negotiate things that then create better, contracts for themselves.
Yeah. And what I like about all those examples is it doesn't require an overhaul in your operations.
It doesn't.
You're really just highlighting some areas for increased efficiency that at face value, it's a percentage here or there, but at scale, those percentages really add up in a meaningful way. And when you're valued as a multiple of your EBITDA, then it adds up even more.
And multiple locations, right? If you have, even if you're a solo practice, this all matters. And then a lot of solo practices, it matters even more, right? That's real cash you're just taking home as opposed to paying a vendor more. But I'm sure, from y'all's perspective too, you guys get into cleaning up AR, rev cycle, and obviously all the data that comes from it. What are you seeing? When somebody has that moment after y'all have overhauled their system, I'm sure you have some feedback too.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the space today. One of the things that we talk to people about is you can't have like your real way of doing things in a consistent method and with fragmented systems. And so if you're using 6 different PMS solutions across 30 or 40 different offices, how can you expect to have consistency in the way that you operate with that type of environment? And in the absence of consistency, you lose the ability to implement processes that are actually followed on how you collect your outstanding accounts receivable, how your estimates are done for treatment planning and for procedures that take place, how you are auto applying your 835s to ensure that you're, getting the right amount from the insurance carriers. Like there's just a whole multitude of things. And it's at rescheduling patients, you can go down the list, like a million different operational efficiencies.
Go down the list, scheduling, optimization, all that. Yeah.
Yep. And then the other element to it is if you are standardized, you are given the ability to centralize. And if you're given the ability to centralize, then at scale, you actually do have the opportunity for a reduction in headcount. If you implement new things that maybe add a 15% efficiency to the ability for somebody to do it, but you have 15 people doing it. Well, that's one person that you're able to reduce a headcount from. So it's not always a case of just replacing people. And maybe you want to reallocate that investment somewhere else in your organization. It doesn't necessarily mean layoffs or otherwise, but it does give you the opportunity to have the flexibility that you need where you need it. So those are some of the things that I think are moments for people.
And I think they're so powerful because a lot of times we, in our life cycle, I don't say competing is the wrong word, but we are at the same inflection point where they're like, we need to go to a singular practice management system and we need to go to a more robust accounting system. QuickBooks Online is not the way anymore. And look, we've run $400, $500 million businesses on QBO. It can be done. It's just there's more efficiency to be gained. And back to your FTE reduction, Sally Jane could be repurposed to do another job if we really gain efficiency. Or more importantly, somebody could step back with all the data that you and I are aggregating and actually make decisions. We talk about accountability so much between your practice management system and your accounting. There's a metric all over the place. Somebody has to own every one of those metrics. And if they don't, there's decisions not made. And then, of course, how do you prioritize? Is new patients the issue, or is it, staff cost? Is it dental supplies, or is it marketing dollar? Like, where do you prioritize? And then it's a matter of harnessing them to say, let's do this for 90 days, then go to the next thing and really work on execution there.
And do you see challenges from a data perspective within groups where they're just not aggregating the right things, or the information that they have in their QuickBooks, if they're still on QuickBooks, if they haven't moved to an Intact, or I don't know if NetSuite is big in dental, but like if they haven't moved into some other solution, is there, when you start diving in, is like, wait, these things don't add up? Is that a common thing that to occur?
It is common in, obviously it allows you to force the ad, but it does. What's common is the data, what it's telling you. I mean, I say, what's the story telling you, right? If you're DSOs, I mean, the industry has been along long enough. The evolution is there. There's a standardized chart of accounts that we all like to see. And I say it's our common love language, whether it's me or any of the brokers, we're kind of wanting to see this format. And from that, if it's not in that format and people are trying to hide and peck and choose where that number may be buried, or again, the big things, I'll pick on dental supplies again. If you're throwing in everything from software to hand pieces you're buying to new technology, your computer, all into dental supplies, and somebody like me says your dental supplies are high and you've done everything you can to negotiate that down, then something else is not telling the right story. And then that, of course, leaves money on the table to say, well, you could have capitalized this and added it back. But our biggest challenge, I mentioned earlier, I look at 30 practices, 30 businesses a month, and I've been doing that 20 years now. And I think I can count on two hands how many financial statements I couldn't tear apart. I mean, that's how robust the problem is relative to this discussion. And I also say problem, opportunity, right? Just like when I flip that over to the practice management side, and you know this better, I mean, post-period adjustments are the biggest issue. AR changing at month end after we pull the reports already. The production changes when I think I've done a report, and then it's, what happened? Those are the challenges we see on data. And then, hey, all these buried credits that haven't been dealt with. I mean, there's a lot of things that somebody's got to manage there.
It's amazing the amount of practices that don't want to have things locked down at the end of a month, and they're like, "Oh, I want to go back and change this." It's like, no, you really don't. Like, please don't do that. We had somebody actually not purchase our software because we didn't allow them the flexibility that they were seeking.
What's important, and I think just from a message on that point, what folks don't understand is, let's just say us or any other CPA is doing your bookkeeping and record keeping. Fast forward 2 years, and we've tied out every practice management system, every accounts receivable report, all of that. The reality is the next person who does due diligence on you is going to re-pull all the data. They may not trust the statements we have saved in this file. They're going to re-pull the same data. If that's changed, your validity and our validity, of course, because we're a partner with you, has now been in question. Like, why are these numbers different? Like you said, you produced 150,000 at this location. This says 142. What happened? So those are the challenges where we have to provide enough support and, of course, create those backstops. And it's fine if somebody's not going to work with you because you want to do it right. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It can certainly hurt the integrity of the folks involved when something like that takes place. And also, just as kind of an ongoing challenge, you'll have, if you're a larger multi-location group, it'll hurt the reputation that you have with your doctors, because at some point the data is not going to add up. They're going to say, like, this doesn't seem right. And if you're paying me off of this information, and now I've gone back and looked, and all of a sudden it says that there was more production than you paid me for initially, or there was this or that, it's a real issue for certain groups, and it can be problematic for sure.
And are you guys, I mean, this is something that's super powerful if you're not doing it yet, but automating some of the doctor compensation calculation because of that very reason, right? Why take one step from, your system to Sally Jane to input it into Excel to then create a payroll record? I mean, there's some efficiencies to be gained. And I know we've done some scrapers on doing that kind of deal, but yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. We've had discussions about that, because it
Yeah.
would seem to make a lot of sense to extend and have that. And it's I've seen some of the spreadsheets some of our customers use for provider pay.
Yeah.
And it's like, that could be
We're taking days.
Yeah.
to calculate all these. And then, like you said, if somebody questions the calculation because they wouldn't re-pull the same report the next day and it's changed on them, then yeah, you have a problem.
Yep, absolutely. I'd be curious, from your perspective, you've worked with lots of groups in the dental space. What makes somebody good to work with?
Ooh. I think, and this goes without saying for all of us, right? Appreciation. We're all humans. We're going to have issues. We're going to, do our best job, and we want to work our best for you. But we also understand you, just like us, have priorities that you're focused on. So we love teams. We love people that we're working with that understand the value that we can bring and the value that we're doing, right? We all want to get compensated for our work, but at the same time, more importantly than the money, it truly is, hey, Mike, I want your opinion, or I'm so thankful for what you and your team do. That's what we're seeking. CLA is a firm. We serve over 200,000 businesses all over the nation, right? We're proud of the entrepreneurship spirit that we have. But that's what's really important to us is, just we're in this together. Like, we're trying to help you and succeed, and we know we can.
Yeah. Well said. When you look at just the industry as a whole right now, and I know that we thought that there was going to be softening of interest rates and some other things that have just certainly not happened. And I don't think anybody's crystal ball worked from 5 months ago.
No, or from a week ago.
Or
to be
from
honest.
a week ago.
Anymore.
That's right. Wait 72 hours, and this is going to be this entire conversation is going to be out of date.
I know.
But when you look at the landscape in general right now, do you feel that the consolidation of dental practices into multi-location groups or DSOs is going to continue? And when we think of the slowdown that's taken place in some of the M&A, and look, some of the groups that are in very healthy financial positions have never stopped. They not over levered. They've been able to continue to maintain growth, and they've done it in a responsible, what seems to be a responsible way, or at least it's working for them. But when you look at just the overall space compared to like the feeding frenzy that took place a few years ago, do you foresee this accelerating again? Like, what would be your prognosis?
It's a great. Well, so two things. One, your comment about this being outdated in 3 days is funny, because during COVID, and obviously that was a really tough time.
Yes.
I was waking up at 2:00 every morning to rewrite this presentation, because I was doing 3 to 4 a day, every day.
Yeah.
And that was, such a tough, awful time for so many. But, relative to your question, I love this question, because there are a lot of folks that believe we're going to be 100% consolidated.
Mm-hmm.
I am not one of them.
Yeah.
And I say that because we can look at physicians and the veterinarian, we can look at so many other verticals in healthcare that have done it before us. And I sat down and I met with a local real estate broker here, and this was the end of the year. They had 87 solo brand new starts going in North Texas alone. So those are solo practitioners that want to just figure it out, and maybe they do DSOs, maybe they don't. But I think we're going to see a gradual wave, right? Because you mentioned it earlier. There's a lot of groups that sold, and they sold young, and they're like, man, I could do this again. So they spin out and do it again after their capital event or whatnot. And we see another solo practitioner. I've run across people that just want to go back to chairside and be a one location doctor after they had their big capital event. And so I think you're going to see people of all kinds. I saw actually today, Bill Newman posted on LinkedIn. I don't know if you saw that, about somebody saying DSOs are the end of the world or something like that.
Oh no, I'll have to go look. I always love those conversations.
Oh my gosh. And so seriously, somebody's clearly passionate about solo practice. I think there's got to be an avenue for all. But as we look at dental today, and it just depends on who you ask. I say somewhere between 30 and 40% is my best estimate of affiliated and consolidated, not just DSOs, because there's a lot of groups out there that are just, together. Veterinary is where it is on the large group side. It's like 70%. On the mid range, it's like 50%. So there's still a lot of solo practices there too. Ophthalmology is on the smaller side. Physicians, they're coming and going from the hospitals every decade. So I think we have a runway. I did expect 2025 to be a little stronger than it has started off the gate. And I'm going to be very curious as we go into our summer conferences and speaking if the value or the interest rates kind of come down a little bit. I don't know that they're going to, but here, if you think about private equity, they have to deploy that capital. So at the end of the day, they're going to have to find something to buy, and they're either going to have to keep their valuations higher or negotiate some, different kickers to make everybody happy about the deal.
Yeah. It's a very interesting time right now for sure. And I agree with your comment on the consolidation. I think there is independent streak in dentistry, and I don't think that's going away. And I'm glad that it's not. I think it's great to have optionality, and people should be able to pursue the kind of independent, I'm going to go out there and be an entrepreneur and a dentist all at the same time and build what I want to build. And the kind of the connection that dentistry can have with communities as well, I think really lends itself to that in ways that make somebody that is independent in that way really valuable in what their approach is. But I also would say, I think that we will continue to see, consolidation over time. Is pharmacy the most consolidated? Like, I can't think of an independent pharmacy anymore. They're all in CVS or Costco or whatever.
There's a resurgence of them. I actually just started working with a new one yesterday. There's a resurgence of solos coming out, especially on the specialty side, right? Big dollars there on that. But kind of going back to the consolidation, what we started, if you think about the life cycle of dentistry, when I was in it, was, DSO was the awful corporate word of dentistry, if you will. So management company was used, and then, all the other things, but it was all GP practices. Every so often you saw specialty. Then after COVID and the resiliency of that, we saw a bunch of specialties roll up. Now we're seeing them come together. I think we'll see one more step, meaning physician practices and aesthetics practices coming in with dentistry. We're already seeing dental practices offering med spa services in the back. And I think that's like, I remember I worked with some clients in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and stuff back in the day, and there's 52 providers under one house, everything from dentistry to physician to cancer to everything. And it was just one mecca of a facility, like the Mayo on steroids kind of, but that was a normal practice. And it was fascinating to see that. But I do think we'll get some of that here too.
I mean, honestly, it's not like it doesn't make sense to, especially with some of the cosmetic offerings, like go get your Botox and your teeth whitening. Seems like a match made in heaven, really. So
it does. Yep.
Can certainly see kind of that growing more over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some of the things, if you are, embarking upon 3, 7, 10 practices, and somebody wanted to come to you, and what are some of the questions they should be asking, and what are the things that you would be offering as a service?
Ooh, good question. So one of the questions they should be asking, I mean, ultimately, I'd actually like to flip it the other way. What do they want to do when they grow up? Like, what is their vision and their goal? Because some people are so enchanted by big corporate dentistry, and that's what they think they want to do is grow their own 100 location DSO. I'm sure you can count on several hands how many people are like, I'm going to be 100 locations, and they're 2.
Yeah.
And they get to about 10 or 20, and they've had a successful event. They've had a very good life, and they move on. But I've also had the same conversations at conferences where I have a dentist that's making $2 million a year, working 2 days a week because he has a phenomenal system in place. And he's like, well, I think I want to do that. And it's like, do you? Because a lot of folks don't understand the investment to get to the next level. You're little by little eroding. Yes, you're building for the long-term value, but in the short term, it could hurt. So I also want to understand what are they trying to get out of the relationship? And more importantly, who's on their team, right? If they're coming and they're working with you and they're working with some of our attorney friends and some of our recruiting friends, and we know all the players, that the team that they're surrounding themselves is a powerful team that we can really, do something together. I think it's important. If they're building their team, then we want to help them build that team, just like you guys do too, and doing things like this as well. But most importantly, it's like, what is important to you? What drives you every day? What are you trying to accomplish in life? And, let's work through those pieces. But the questions they need to ask, I mean, us and as an organization of any kind, but, We can speak to our experience. We serve, I think we're the largest dental CPA firm, certainly largest DSO CPA firm in the nation. We're proud of what we do with this industry, the education and stuff. So certainly can ask me any question they want on that side. And of course, our team too. But, what's important to them on their financial front? I want to know when I meet with, what are you getting from your product? Let me see your last 12 months, trailing 12 P&L balance sheet. What does your balance sheet look like? Because so many of them don't look at it. And of course, what practice management system they're on. Those are the questions we always have.
Have you seen a growth in kind of these loosely connected doctor-led groups and orgs? I can think of at least a half dozen at this point.
And ADS.
Yeah, and it is like you'll have 3 or 4 docs that maybe a couple of them have 2 or 3 practices, maybe one is just a single, and then somebody kind of comes in and convinces them that they should all work together as like a unified organization. And I'm just kind of curious your perspective on that approach and what maybe some of the unique financial challenges that poses could be.
So in 2023, this was huge. I think I did 9 of them, various sizes from 10 locations to 50 plus. And, the market in 2022, 2023 was, I don't want to say accepting. They understood there was an aggregation there. They understood there was a lot of EBITDA, but they also understood the work on the integration side behind the deal that had to be done. So you got an increase in valuation, but it was typically 1 or 2 turns lower than if you actually fully integrated. I smile when you were talking about it because I literally wrote a PowerPoint and Word document presentation and memo for a group yesterday that wanted to do this again. And I kind of tailored it to where they were and in this conversation. And I'm still seeing it come back. 2024, we saw them kind of here and there. I'm seeing more and more. This 2 in the last 10 days that have come across my plate. Now, one dental, one non-dental, but still we're seeing it in all sorts of verticals, if you will. The pros and cons, why private equity doesn't like them is the homework. Private equity wants to deploy capital, get an ROI all 5 years that they hold the asset. If they have to integrate you, put you on practice management system, get their accounting done, get all the C-suite people, that's 12 to 18 months lost. And another million or 2 million in EBITDA that they've got to overcome because of all the infrastructure they had to build out for you. The other challenges is those deals typically, I don't want to say typically, 10 out of 10 deals that we did in 2023, every one of them had somebody at the 11th hour say, I'm worth more. If you don't pay me more, I'm not closing tomorrow. And they move on. It's like, okay, great. Good luck to you. But there's always that person that tries to blow up the deal. I think that's the important part there.
Yeah. I mean, I love democracy, but sometimes in business, it is not the appropriate approach. And you really have to have folks with very, very aligned approach and values heading into an arrangement like that to ensure that it's going to be a win.
And I'll tell you the things they need to do to make it a win. They have to integrate your systems and they have to integrate our systems. We want them, and depending on how affiliated they get, HR requires them to affiliate their HR and benefits platform as well. But we want the story at the practice management level and the story at the financials to be the same. And on the HR and IT, as much as we can get integrated, I'm not saying move all your IT and servers to one place, but I'm saying if you at least aren't integrated on all the same practice management, get the analytics side and get the data scraped, understand your replicability of your model. And more importantly, after you come together, so let's say you can raise capital and do this together, then what? Right? Do you have a pipeline of 20, 30, 40 friends that wanted to watch you do it and then they would come over? Or do you just, let's figure this out and then we'll go try to find people then? Because the more the story you can tell, the more attractive you are to somebody to take a chance. There's people coming into this industry all the time, but they don't want a job necessarily. They want an investment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really great point. And you think anytime somebody wants to invest, there has to be some ability that where they believe they can drive additional value, or else it's not worth making that investment. But where they want to drive that additional value is not the 18 months in re-platforming the organization on the proper technology. They would much rather pull some other levers to drive that value than to have to go through that process, which is why if you've done that, I think it really does position you in a strong place.
And going back to one of your other comments to that very point, it's the replicability is what they're looking for. Like, what have you dialed in? What, if I invest in you, is it because you have a great M&A strategy or a de novo strategy? Do you have specialty that's a really integrated part of your practice? If I invest in you, what does this look like? But so often they just throw it all together and go from there. But as I start thinking about where we've been, 2023, really good year, 2024, softer than we expected, started off really good, soft landing. 2025, I feel like the back half has to do something. I don't know what, but it has to do something. The next 72 hours, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We'll do a follow-up show that'll release the following Thursday. Yes.
Absolutely.
We won't share what date this is being recorded because it will be released at another time. And we want to make sure that people listen to the whole thing. So there's still a lot of valuable information to get. This has been awesome. Last question for you, Mike, before we wrap. Like, where do you go to learn as having a culture of continual learning and always seeking to improve? And I know you are involved in many things separate and apart from dental, but what are your kind of go-tos?
Oh man, I love the question. So honestly, I got into the podcast a couple of years ago myself. Like I try to do the morning walk, listen to a podcast, whether it be about real estate, whether it be about market economics. I got tired of the politics talk, so we skip those these days. Sure. Sometimes it's just say a random show, about whole show, How I Met Your Mother, the backstory. So sometimes it's just random, but I'm an avid reader as well. Like I'm trying to digest as much as I can. I'm absorbing your content, Bill Newman's. Like there are so many folks putting out great content in this industry. So you want to stay very relevant. The other thing is I have a Rolodex of folks I call all the time and just what's the latest, what's going on, help educate me with the challenges you're seeing. And I always say this to people beyond the podcast at conferences, don't just look at the people on the stage, meet your peers. Like this industry has been so good to each other. And if you network appropriately, you can help elevate the entire industry.
I think it's the best part of dental, in my opinion.
Yeah,
honestly,
I agree.
Is the willingness of people to be transparent and share their problems and try to help out others at this point. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great having you on, Mike. Thank you so much for joining. How people find you?
I'm surprised we didn't talk about the bronze stag and bear.
Yeah, we saved that before we started recording. So
yeah, I know we did.
I didn't want everyone to be aware that you were killing endangered bronze stags and bears that also have vision issues.
With glasses, yeah. Highly sought after animals. Yeah, I know. I mean, my email's super long, so hopefully we can publish that at the end. But if you're going to a conference or whatnot, look up. I'm 6'8". You'll find me. But yeah, Mike White on LinkedIn as well, and love to talk. We do a courtesy assessment of anybody who's willing to talk to us. And I say willing to talk to a CPA, make it fun. But I'm always the person that starts with me, and I'll find the right person, whether it's within our organization or not, and help you and guide you through. And then if you just want to have a chat, then let's talk. I love business owners and helping them grow. It's funny, Mike, I don't know about you, but my volunteer time is volunteering for entrepreneurship schools.
Yeah.
So no matter what, that's what I give back is mentorship programs still in this world. It's funny. Yeah.
Well, when you have the skill that you can apply to share, even, that tends to be the best spot to volunteer as well. It's why you get dentists that go to other countries and perform dentistry. It's like, hey,
that's right.
I'm actually equipped to do this.
Yeah, that's right.
So no, this is great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Good to see everybody, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. The Dental Economist Show is brought to you by Planet DDS, home of Dental OS. To find out more about how cloud-based dental software by Planet DDS helps unleash dentists and their staff to focus on patient care, visit www.planetdds.com. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes by following wherever you listen to podcasts. And thank you for listening.